Welcome to the Dream Life is Real Life podcast with your host, Hannah Hermanson, bringing you real-life stories of people who realized their dreams to educate and inspire you to create your legacy of abundance now.
Hi, everyone. Today, we are with Arthur Samuel Joseph, MA, founder and chairman of the Vocal Awareness Institute. It's widely recognized today as one of the world's foremost communication strategists and authorities on the human voice. A renowned teacher and mentor, Mr. Joseph's mission is to change the world through voice. Vocal Awareness, his trademarked proprietary voice and leadership training program, is designed to teach communication mastery through a disciplined regimen of highly specific techniques. These techniques are structured to cultivate an embodied and enhanced leadership presence, as well as a personal presence through body language techniques, vocal warm-ups, and storytelling skills. What emerges is an integrative and integral communication style, with a client list that includes A-listers like Angelina Jolie, Sean Connery, Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, Jerry Rice, and Emmitt Smith. No wonder Jerry Arthur is known as the expert in communication mastery, and today his voice and communication is live with us on the show. Thanks for being here.
That was fun. I'm happy to be here. How are you?
I'm excited. You said we're going to play a little bit today on the show, which I think is great because I love that just in the intro, all of the aspects of communication you're talking about. And as someone who spends a lot of time in the digital space, I'm excited to convey your messages not in person. Do you do a lot of that now? Digital communication?
Yes, I describe myself as the Cro-Magnon man of technology. I am a true Luddite. But I do this all over the world because my vision is to change the world through voice. And as you may or may not know, this is my 54th year since creating vocal awareness. And so I'm in a period in my life that I call my legacy period. So I've actually just this January launched the first ever certification course to begin to help people who so aspire to build a business teaching vocal awareness, for example.
Yes.
Because I want to create a pipeline because I don't want to die with me.
I love it. Yeah, that's so important. Do you know Jack Canfield? He wrote the Chicken Soup books. And
for my first book, actually, I've written 5 books. My first book 30 or so years ago was called The Sound of the Soul.
Yeah.
And it was published by HCI, the Chicken Soup people. And so all the books had to have soul in the title.
Oh, yeah.
I know Jack from decades ago.
Yeah. So I'm working with him now, and he's in that same sort of like really focusing on the legacy piece and getting everything out and documented and into the hands of other people. And I think that's something that we don't need to wait 50 years, but we can all start to be thinking about the ways, how can we certify or teach in ways that our lessons will transpire. So,
when you speak with or see Jack, I haven't seen him in decades, but he may remember, and tell him Arthur says howdy.
I will. That's fun. So I'd love to know, you can't just read an intro and drop names like Angelina Jolie and Tony Robbins and not ask what that experience was like. What sort of lessons do you learn in working with some of those really, super successful and elite personalities?
Interesting. I don't know quite how to answer that question. You hear me a little stumped because if you look at my website, you see there's a breadth and depth and complexity of the people I work with, and they're just the names on the website. Besides that, there are Holocaust survivors, there are people I've taught the deaf to sing, people with all kinds of vocal challenges. And there is one thing in common with people like Tony, Angelina, the names are just all over the place, is that there's a theme in vocal awareness, and I believe this answer would be more relevant for your audience. I teach a lot of elite athletes in virtually any sport you can think of. And in football, my 21st and 22nd students are being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this August in Canton, for example. And I share that because I have a theme in vocal awareness that says, A champion does it differently. Now, if we look up the root of the word champion, it's not a sports-centric word. It literally means dazzlingly skilled in any field. To be a champion, one must have an intense belief system, and one must be audacious in implementing that belief system. Now, we look up the word audacity, and that means fearlessly bold, intrepid, courageous. And so your audience, think about the multitudes of women, for example, who are listening. Mm-hmm. It is not a level playing field. Here I'm pretty androgynous, so I think we speak from a woman's point of view, how arrogant is that? But it is not a level playing field. We know that. And we know it's largely a patriarchal culture, and we have all these social stigmas and rules and all of this kind of stuff. And I wrote an article for Huffington after the last presidential debate 2 years ago, and 2.5 years ago, saying that Hillary had broken the glass ceiling for women. She was outrageous. She was extraordinary. But they're talking about her cleavage and her pantsuit, for God's sakes. Mm-hmm. And this obscene human being in the White House, it's not a level playing field.
Right.
And yet, my goal is to not make any of us into someone we're not, but to help us all bring out whom we're capable of being. So then I ask your audience to take a look at an extraordinary woman named Kirsten Sinema, Kyrsten Sinema, Sinema, and look at her campaign announcement from November 2017 or 16, whenever that was. She's wearing a blue top, and it's about 3 minutes and change. And I'm sitting right next to the camera, conducting every nanosecond of it. We've done our homework. We've done our warm-ups. I annotated the prompter copy, so it's in what is called in vocal awareness visceral language, so that we see the words, we feel the emotion of the language of the story we're telling. She's now a U.S. Senator from Arizona, a Democrat from a red state. And the goal for that was, I don't believe any campaign ad either side of the aisle, I told her team. Our criteria is, I have to believe you. So I'd like your audience to watch, because she's quite wonderful. Yeah. And it's not making Kirsten or anyone into somebody she's not, but bringing out what is possible. And so in vocal awareness, I help us tap into that discovery. And for example, if I say to you, sit at attention, please, sit up nice and tall. And you notice you hold your breath. Correct?
Yep.
Now relax. And this time embody a magnificent woman of stature, feeling a thread pull from 3 inches below your navel, right up through the middle of your head, the top of your crown chakra, taller and taller. Don't rush. Don't tighten neck and shoulders. And embody a woman of stature. Do you notice your space is quieter internally and externally?
I'm taking deep breaths.
And you breathe before you
Yes.
And so all I did was change the word to stature. Stature helps us claim who we are. And then sociologists tell us the greatest fear in society is public speaking. You've heard that ridiculous saw for decades. It's completely bogus. The real fear are two fears: fear of abandonment and ownership of my power. When I hold my breath, when I wonder what they're thinking about me, I'm in the white noise. I'm not there for myself. Fear of abandonment, ownership of my power. We do not realize how much work it takes to be ourselves while others watch. So in vocal awareness, we create our persona state. The root of the word persona means through the sound. One's identity is largely conveyed through the sound of a voice and an opinion created in a nanosecond. If I say to you, I'm really happy to be on the show today, thank you so very much for having me on, versus, it's really nice to be on your show today. Thank you so much for having me on. Now, the first one is ridiculous, but we don't know why that man is untrustworthy. We don't realize that he simply spoke too fast and his pitch was too high. Mm. The second one, it doesn't occur to you that I simply slowed down and breathed and it affected my pitch. All you got was that man is more authentic. So the persona statement has two parts to it. The first question we answer is, how do I believe I'm presently perceived? The second question we answer is, how would I ideally like to be known? And then it raises an interesting notion. We actually have a choice? Yeah. For you see, every single thing in life revolves only around two things: to choose to do something or to choose not to. Never matters how scary it is, how seemingly daunting. All that matters is how badly I want it. Even in abdication, one makes a choice by walking away. There are many trademarked elements in vocal awareness. One of them is I teach empowerment through voice. All I care about in this work is, does that choice empower me or disempower? No one can take our power, but we can hand it to them on a silver platter.
Yeah. So what are some maybe like practices or rituals that people can use to help them claim that power, to get a little more comfortable or aware of that fearness of...
Can you ask me that again as a woman of stature? And before you ask the question, allow a slow, silent, conscious, loving breath. It will take 5 seconds. Put yourself in stature and allow this 5-second conscious, loving breath. And at the apex of your inhale, ask me again, please.
How do we claim our vocal power?
You hear now, oh, that was, say the same sentence again. That was excellent. This time, underline the word power and see a period at the end of it. In stature, watch your neck and shoulders. They tend to get a little tight. 3, deeper. 2, deeper. And the question?
How do we claim our vocal power?
Closer. Do you hear anything, by the way? Do you feel that things are a bit more relaxed?
Mm-hmm.
Do you notice that your pitch is a little lower?
Mm.
Perhaps you didn't. The first one was more effective than the second one because I had you trying too hard the second time. So what I was just illustrating is breath. We have 7 rituals in vocal awareness. I teach another trademark part of the work is communication mastery. In the arts and athletics, in one skill set, we're in mastery at the elite levels that, superstar athletes and great performers are in mastery. And to get back, by the way, I just remember I didn't answer your Angelina and Tony question. Mm-hmm. They're champions because they aspire to not just do their best, but be their best. Mm-hmm. And champions don't let anything deter them. Nothing. And I'm not saying it's the healthiest approach, but that's a approach. Mm-hmm. So to come back to this, we have 7 rituals. Watch what your body does when may I use the word God? I have another way around if you'd rather I not.
Yeah, I think we know what you're getting at.
Okay, so within yourself, not aloud, simply, and it's the first of our 7 rituals, say thank you to God. Just take in the thought. And once again, your space gets quieter and you inhaled just as you did with stature. Is that correct?
Yep.
And then if I introduce you to the second ritual, which will make absolutely no sense, just hear the words love and let go. feel what it might be like to simply love and let go and take in that thought. And once again, you inhale. Now, why does any of this breathing stuff matter? Well, the root of the word spirit, spiritus, in Latin means to breathe. The Hebrew word neshama means both soul and breath. So Tony used to tell me that he would refer to his audience when we were working as talk about my 7 rituals as pattern interrupts. Said to break an old pattern, to create a new one, you have to exaggerate behavior to establish this new pattern. Speech is habit. We don't think about it, we just babble. But I'm taking speech to another strategic level, where we're not just screaming data, we're conveying story. Our mouth is not simply our mind out loud, but we want to be tactical, aware as we speak. And it's never simply how fast, but rather how effective. So I've given you 2 rituals. I've given you 3 rituals because the third one is to allow a conscious, loving breath. Then may I do a brief exercise with you?
Yes.
With our lips gently together, I'm going to demonstrate it first. We're going to do this. I blow a little air out my nostrils first, and I hum somewhat nasally, with no tension in my mouth whatsoever. My lips are gently touching, and I do this. And where my pitch ends up, I begin speaking. Will you do that with me? I won't make you do it by yourself. Would that be
I'm ready. Yeah.
First, we have to get into stature. We thank Source. Slow, loving breath, deeper, deeper, and as nasal as can be, begin. And from where that pitch ends up, say, I am an extraordinary woman and I do extraordinary things. In 3, breathing, 2, begin.
I am an extraordinary woman and I do extraordinary things.
What are you experiencing?
Some confusion. I have such habits. So that felt very awkward.
I'm sorry?
That was very different than my habits. So it felt awkward.
How do you think it sounded?
Monotone.
Oh. Will you listen back? Not right now, but at another time. And you will see that it really actually wasn't monotone. Yes, I know, it was definitely awkward. Who does on a podcast, except with me, obviously, just now. But what your audience might note is that it was a bit slower. The voice a little richer and warmer, and you were mindful. Yes, of course, you felt awkward. And what's important, however, is that is the beginnings of discovering more creative opportunities, that we don't just have one gear, and that speed is warp. Speech is habit. But your audience, I know your audience are entrepreneurs, business owners, people who don't just have dreams, but have visions and want to turn those visions into reality. So this work enables us to learn how not to present who we are, but to be who we are. And you may not like this concept, but every public encounter, from this podcast to that conference call to that sales meeting, is a performance, not a presentation, because someone is watching or listening. Now, in my last book, Vocal Leadership, there was a glossary of root sources at the back of the book. And if we look up the word presentation, it means to introduce formally, to bring before the public. If we look up the word performance, it literally means to carry out, fulfill, to do. So this is just a very different mindset, because I want you, I use that phrase intentionally because you are an extraordinary woman. You are here giving back. You're here to make a difference. But I want you to be much more in charge, not just you, but all of us, not just of the message, but the messenger. And that's in part what I'm demonstrating and illustrating today. Does that make any pragmatic sense?
Definitely. It's a connection of mind and an embodiment, right? Like we have to...
Spirit, because that's mastery. That ritual of the ball player climbing into the box and all that nonsense they do is not just craziness, it's actually got a spiritual component. I don't know one artist or one athlete before competing that doesn't have a spiritual ritual. But we don't take that into the rest of our lives. We don't take that into that business meeting. We just show up. But in vocal awareness, I want to shift the paradigm. I want us to be in charge of how we want to be known. I want us to be in charge of the business I am offering you is so important for every mother in your community, because we are creating safe harbor for women of all backgrounds, culturally, ethnically, socioeconomically, to come together and share in a safe environment. And we meet every Tuesday at 9, every Friday at 1. And trust me when I say this opportunity to come together as women is an empowering moment in everyone's life. Now, what did you think of the story I just shared? Was it that bad?
Think of the story, yeah, in our minds.
No, what did you think of the story I just shared with you?
Oh, yes, it was something that made me want to take action and had me thinking differently.
And you saw some pictures, right, in my mind?
Mm-hmm.
Because I told story. And of course, I was just making that up in the moment. I never thought of that before a minute ago. But it felt real to you because it was real for me. And so helping your audience learn how to tell their story, their origin story, as Jack maybe speaks with you about. And one of my NFL men told his origin story in his Hall of Fame acceptance speech 2 years ago, and it went viral when he spoke about his great-great-great-great-grandfather coming over on a slave ship in chains from East Africa, because it was real. So having your audience write out what is their vision, creating a timeline for all the micro and macro steps required to fulfill that vision. And then a really important exercise is something called 168 hours in vocal awareness. 7 times 24. How do we structure time? Because we all have a day job, we have families, we have other lives, while always building our dreams. So we always have to figure out how we're going to make that happen without feeling like I'm stealing from Peter to pay Paul. So in vocal awareness, structure is really important to me. So it's a way of creating structure so that your dream doesn't die of boredom, but it actually becomes a reality.
And that's what we are all about here.
I know I probably overstayed my welcome, but...
Well, I wanted to make sure that we did get to the opportunity to have the audience really implement this. You mentioned there was a way for them to really dive into this work with you. Is that right?
Yes, I create for your audience something I call the Visual Voice Pro, which is a program a video program of me teaching this work while also teaching something I've just demonstrated a few times today called visceral language, conveying the emotion of words. And it's quite an empowering experience. And for your audience, it's offered at a 50% discount because it really matters to me that you're, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
This is really the way, this is something that nobody else has. I own this space. And so it is the missing piece. And when I speak about voice is power, you understand a little bit more since we've been on this thoughtful podcast. You're a lovely host. Just on for days. Why communication matters. And this program, it's a game changer.
That is very generous, and we'll be sure to have the link to access that offer in the show notes so you guys can stay connected with Arthur and continue your own embodiment and mastery of the voice of a leader.
Wow, that was nicely put. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We are at that time, friends. So I hope you do take advantage of this offer and look more into the work we discussed today. I will be back next week with another inspiring guest that helps make your dream life your real life. Until then.
You've been learning how to make your dream life your real life with Hannah Hermanson. To get the resources mentioned on today's show and to listen to past episodes, visit www.dreamlifeisreallife.com.